Alan Lewis Raw Conversation, where every voice has a story.
Hello.
Hello, Alan. Nice to meet you.
Todd, nice to meet you. How are you?
I'm good, sir.
Good. That was Jacob. He's the producer. He's been helping me do everything to set up today. So he's put us in contact, but thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Your
So,
friend Bernie said straight away, if there's anyone you should talk to, it was you. He said you're a real good guy and someone to, see if they would come on the show, and you accepted. So I thanks you for that today.
oh, no problem. Well, got to help an Aussie out, right?
Yep.
So,
No, it's all good. You said you had a few friends down here as well.
yes, yeah, I have quite a few colleagues that I do business with. And then, when I played professional baseball, we had some different guys that I played with in the Angel organization, Trent Durrington, and Matt Buckley, and a bunch of former ball players. But yeah,
Before we start, have you ever been down to Australia?
no, it's on my bucket list.
Okay,
Yes.
if we're down here, we might, next time you come down, who knows, we might even be able to have a meetup.
Oh, that'd be great.
Okay,
Yeah,
no, we'll start into it, and like I said, it's just really gentle talk. We'll go through anything, and it's just easy, just sitting down and having a talk.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll follow you.
Todd, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thank you, Alan, for having me. I'm honored to be a guest on your show.
Just letting you know a little about bit about where I am on in Queensland in Australia, as we've been talking. There's about 6 million people here in Queensland. It's a large state. We have the Olympics coming in 2032, and we have some of the best beaches. We're actually in our cold part. Well, it's not really that cold, but we get a little bit of a winter here in the area I am. Can you tell me where you're from and just a little bit about your state?
Yes, so I'm living in the state of Texas in the United States, and I live about 30 minutes north of Dallas, which is in the northern part of the state in a town called Frisco. That's really booming right now. We have a lot of technology companies coming into the city, along with PGA and other sports properties. And then we're about 30 minutes from the Dallas Cowboys. So, yeah, we moved here from Southern California about 9 years ago, and we really love it.
And yeah, the weather over there now is getting a bit warmer. Is it in your warm kind of season, is it?
Yes, so we're in the hundreds, high 90s, hundreds. But it's not too bad in North Texas. South Texas gets really humid. So we kind of get a mix between the humidity and that dry weather. But yeah, it's bearable.
Excellent. Well, I know you're done. You have your own podcast. You have before, and you've done a lot of talking. So I'll let you drive us any way you wish to go down to any tracks you would like to talk to as we're going today. I mean, most podcasts start off with, can you tell me a little bit about your family, where you grew up, and just a little bit about your, childhood and parents and siblings?
Sure. So I grew up a pretty unusual lifestyle. My dad played professional baseball for 23 years, and he was inducted into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame in 2011. So growing up, since really birth, I was born and raised on a baseball field, traveling around with my dad. My dad was a very present father to me, even though he lived a lifestyle of always being on the road and away from our hometown. I was always with him up until my high school years. So I got a chance to run around in the clubhouse and shine shoes and help the bat boys and clubhouse guys put, their jerseys away and prepare for the games every night. But I also got a chance to be on the field with a lot of those great athletes at the Major League Baseball level, from town to town, and rub elbows and go and fetch, lunches and snacks and things like that for the players when they were hungry. But that was part of the family, and there was no life like it. as far as I was concerned. But my dad always took me, wherever he was at, and it was a great experience because I got a chance to learn what it's like to lose, what it's like to win. And in baseball, where every pitch counts and every game, if you lose, you're quiet, you are reserved, you know your place. It wasn't a playground for me where I could go and jump around on players, especially when we lost. So I respected their game. I respected their day-to-day consistency of always trying to be the best and play at the highest level that sport provided. So that was amazing to me. And I took a lot of that attitude into my own life. I was a pretty good athlete in high school, and then my younger years. But in high school, I really started to shape my game in football and baseball, American football,
Yeah.
and then ended up pursuing baseball. I got drafted 3 times and became a professional baseball player after my third year in college. And yeah, I ended up playing and scouting. But as far as my childhood, so I've got a brother, 2 brothers, and a sister. And they weren't as fortunate as what I was to run around with my dad in the clubhouse and be a part of that, being bat boy on the field and things. But yeah, it was a pretty amazing childhood. I have no complaints. My dad was a stern father. He was a dad that taught us uh, the value of the dollar. If I wanted money, I had to go wash a car. I had to go down to the neighbor's house. I remember walking down the neighborhood with my bucket and my soap and my sponge. Nothing was really handed to us, which was I thought a great lesson to learn, especially at a young age.
And talking about that time and when, like you said, when you went to high school and you were probably at home more, a little bit like you have service families, army and that when the person goes off to war and the other person or war goes and serves and the other person has to look after the family. I suppose, the wives at that time, mums who are looking after the children, they were a very important time too because the dads were away for periods of time traveling and training every day. And I suppose the wives had to take a big part of that time to look after the children, understand the position their husbands were in, and the extra work they had to do.
Yes, sir. Yeah. My mom played a vital role in not only being my dad's support, through all of those years and the hardships of being a professional athlete, but a great mom too. We didn't always get along, just because, I was a rambunctious kid that always wanted to be outside digging ditches or throwing a football or a basketball or doing something or jumping off my bike. Um, but yeah, she was always stable. We always had consistency at the house, and she made sure we went through our studies and we got our homework done, and we did everything that we were supposed to do in terms of being good citizens and good neighbors. And that's where I learned how to really help people through that childhood, watching my dad that would step off the field and go help first responders, go help kids in need, visit the hospitals. I mean, he was a very good ambassador for the sport, but also a good role model to watch, as he treated people with kindness and never put himself above anybody. And my mom was the same way. So yeah, it was. I had 2 pretty good role models in my house. I was very lucky.
And when you're talking about your dad and helping with charities and that, I think that's the shame we always hear when in football or whatever code or baseball when something happens, a player gets in trouble or gets pulled over. We only see these parts. We don't actually see behind what the clubs do, the players' extra time they do give to charities and looking after children or other people, and those stories aren't shown enough for people to understand what is happening behind the club and what the extra, things the players are doing to help people.
Yeah, 100%. There's always kids, there's always people, men, women with disabilities, or just haven't had a very good life in terms of maybe there was abuse at home, or whatever that situation was. I think Major League Baseball has always gone over and above to bring those kids, those families in, and the athletes have, for the most part, most of the athletes have always donated or volunteered their time to go out of their way, whether it was showing up early, whether it was staying a little late, to make sure that they sign those autographs, to make those people feel welcomed and special. And that was something my dad always did. And I think because he was such a role model in the clubhouse, those younger players learn from the veterans as, what you're supposed to be doing and how you're supposed to treat people with kindness. Because without that, who are you? You're just an athlete that can go throw a baseball or go tackle somebody in the rugby field, right?
Yeah.
So it's really defining who you are as an individual. And I think professional sports, for the most part, in most sports, you see athletes going out of their way to do those things. Even some of the toughest athletes that you never ever would think would show up at a hospital and be crying and sobbing with kids that maybe had terminal illnesses or something, but they were there and they were present to make sure that they gave those kids a chance to really enjoy themselves as these icons, these role models stepped into the hospital to be there. So yeah, there's a lot that you don't see. They don't put enough emphasis on that.
Excuse me. And being a son, or being the son of your dad, who was a great baseball player, then comes a bit of challenges for the children, and that at times going to school, or the media can watch your father, and the influences and things can be get told said to children. Is that hard at times? Children might say things to you at school, mightn't happen to you, but it would happen to other children. Did you have to ever handle that, or have you ever spoken to other kids because you were hanging around with other children in the baseball?
Yeah, it actually happened a lot, to be honest. And I wasn't a super big kid, growing up. Now I'm 6'5", and I'm pretty present in a crowd. But yeah, Dad would have a bad outing, or he's not pitching for the hometown, and we may have been going to school, say in Southern California, when my dad was pitching from Minnesota, and so you hear kids rub you a little bit, and it was mostly out of jealousy.
Yeah.
I always just tried to treat people with kindness until, like my dad always said, you treat people with kindness until you can't treat them with kindness anymore, and you either walk away. And if you can't walk away, well, then you have to defend yourself. And there were a couple times I had to do that, to stick up for myself or stick up for my sister or my siblings, to let people know that, we are people too, and you can't just push people around. But for the most part, you know, I think it goes back to how I watched my mom and dad deal with that. People coming up in a restaurant while my dad had a fork going up to his mouth with food, and someone asking him, "Hey, do you mind signing this ball or signing this jersey?" And my dad would politely, stop in his tracks, and he'd say, "I will sign your stuff, but allow me to eat my dinner with my family first."
Yeah.
And some people would be really rude and, think that was unacceptable, and they wanted their signature right then and there. And so you got a chance to watch my dad show grace too, which was a good lesson for us.
It must have been great to have a strong male like that watching watching him as you grew up, and it must have showed that you'd taken a lot of that into your life now as an adult, and with you and your children at this moment.
Yes, I mean, definitely lessons that you pride yourself on trying to teach your own kids, the patience, the grace, realizing that everybody doesn't wake up and just have a great day every day. We all deal with our own difficulties in life, our own traumas, whether it's work related or sports, or being a father or a mother, or just having a bad day. And so you're not always going to show up with the best of 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 uh, of intentions, or best in your mind. So I think it's just trying to understand what that person might be going through. And when you're having a bad day and someone else is having a bad day, it's best just to kind of stay away from each other or just remain silent, opposed to lashing out. And so Yeah, but I learned that, I was really lucky to be around a lot of great athletes, on the field and watch that. You go into a New York Yankees stadium, for example, and during batting practice, the ball is getting hit down the left field line, and there's this cordoned off area that players, if the ball goes into this corner down that left field line by the foul pole, you just don't go get the ball because the fans, they'll spit on you, they will cuss at you, they will, they'll do whatever they can to rouse you. And so players just, they know not to go over there. Well, I didn't know that when I was probably about 10, 11 years old. And here I am, I'm a young kid, and I go over to pick up the ball, and this guy asked me to throw him the ball, and I said, "I'm sorry, sir, I can't." Well, next thing you know, I get a soda thrown on the back of my jersey. And then because I had Blyleven, my last name, which was my dad, right, written on the back of my young jersey, uh, all I heard for the next 30 minutes during batting practice, no matter where I was at, was these people in the corner just yelling and saying obscene things about my dad, about my mom. I mean, it was horrible. It was horrible. But you learn that all the people that come in to watch a game are not like that, right? There's only a select few that create that chaos, and so you just learn how to block them out, how to go over to the other side of the field, how to start conversation with players at a young age. So, those athletes go through a lot. They hear a lot. You can't certainly block out everything, but you've got to realize that people are just going to say what they're going to say, and you go about your business and keep performing. So, yeah,
Yeah, I think that sounds good. And I think if we can talk a little bit about your baseball career, I suppose that
sure.
helped a little bit with, you already had saw that with, going around with your dad and with his teams, what happened on that day when you were so young. It must have gave you a little bit more experience than some other players would have had when you were starting off your baseball career.
Yeah, I remember I was in high school one time and I was pitching and I had just struck out like six batters in a row. And around that sixth batter, I remember the kid walked back into their dugout and he said, I just got struck out by Burt Blyleven's son. And I kind of looked into the dugout and I thought, well, you didn't get, that was me, Todd
Yeah.
Blyleven, that just struck you out.
Mm.
And it motivated me more. But I remember talking to my dad about it later on. He said, well, why are your ears in their dugout? And he said, tuck your ears in, you rabbit. Like as if, I had these long ears and I'm hearing everything going on outside of the white lines, on the baseball field between the foul lines. And he said, you need to be able to block that stuff out. And so, of course, I grew up that way, but I didn't apply it to my own game until later. And so, yeah, it definitely helped me stay more focused. And by the time I got into professional baseball, and now you've got 10 to 15,000 people in the stands, you learn how to really block that out and channel just all your attention into what you're about to go perform in those 2 to 3 seconds of absolute aggression and control, trying to get the ball across the plate because I was a pitcher like my dad. So you really block that sound out, and then you get the ball back, and that sound comes back, and then you step up on the rubber on the mound, and then you channel your energy. And when it's time to start your windup and get going again, you block that sound out. So it's really an art. It's a practice. It doesn't work very well inside the house when you're tuning your wife out or
No.
you're tuning your kids out, but it's definitely something that athletes go through. Yeah.
And you'd probably never win the game when you're versing your wife anyhow.
No, no, you do not. Yeah.
No. And like what you just said, what your dad said, that just comes from, it just shows how great wisdom and age, what it brings to your wisdom, isn't it? That's all it is, wisdom from growing older and understanding.
Yeah, and I think when we're younger, you don't always listen to that, right?
No.
You kind of headbutt your dad a little bit, or your friends, parents that might give you some advice. You think that you know it all, and sometimes you have to learn that way. That's how we grow. But all of a sudden, there's this circle of life moment that happens when you go, You know what? Like, Dad, you kind of knew what you were talking about there, and I'm glad I listened enough to then apply it into my later life. So, but yeah, there's a lot of his teachings from playing sports in general, teachings from great coaches and mentors that I had that really shaped me and who I am as a man today. And I'm very thankful and blessed to have been around those types of people.
Thank you for that. As you said, you went into baseball yourself. Can you, and we'll, talk a little bit more about baseball. Can you tell us how well, you got into it, having the love of it, but can you tell us kind of the steps, the grades, how you go through it, and then get signed on, how you did?
Yeah, so basically, I was a baseball player, pitcher in high school. My senior year, I was getting ready to graduate, and I was going to college the next year. I'm then eligible for the Major League Baseball draft. I was selected by the California Angels at that time, but it was up to my parents to decide on whether or not I was going to be a professional player at that time or if I was going to college because I was only 17. I wasn't 18 yet, and I couldn't make up my own decisions. I personally wanted to go play professionally. They opted for me to go to school. So I ended up going to school, and then 2 years later, I got drafted by the Dodgers. It wasn't the right situation for me, so I ended up going to school another year, and I got drafted by the Angels and selected by them. I ended up signing a professional contract after my junior year in college, and then ended up going to short season rookie ball, they call it, where all the new signees, the draft is happening. It happens every year, and once a player is signed, they end up packing their bags and you're off to either Arizona or Florida to your prospective ball club's spring training complex. And that's where you meet all the other players that signed. You meet all the players that are from all types of the world. In fact, when I signed, we had three Australians on the team, along with a New Zealander, which was really amazing because we've played against other ethnicities in the United States, but not a lot against like Dominican Republicans and Puerto Ricans and Venezuelans. We had three players from Russia on our team that first year in rookie ball, and that was amazing because none of us knew how to talk to each other. So other than just throwing the ball around, and we learned at first we learned bad words, which was all you always learn the bad words first.
Of course you do.
But then we learned how to communicate, and we learned through baseball and through sport, through the love that we had for the game on how to become friends, and that's when you really start to get to know each other's culture on how they live and what they like, what they don't like, what they're eating. I got a chance to play in Hawaii during winter ball 2 years, two winters, and half of our team was from Japan. So now you've got a mix of players from all over the world, and half the players are from Japan, and you got players from everywhere coming in to play against each other in one of the most beautiful states, in the United States, with being Hawaii. So yeah, it was really, really something to play professionally, and I got a chance to play 6.5 years. And I was good. I was a very good player, but I was not great like my dad. There's very few that are like that, and that's why he's in the Hall of Fame. And so when I got done playing, I tried normal life work for about a year. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And remember I was talking to my dad on the phone one time. We were talking about baseball, talking about players and the game. And when I got off the phone, a friend of mine said, you're always talking about baseball and you always look so happy. Why don't you go back and work in baseball or do something in baseball? So I took a leap of faith and I called some friends that were in the Major League Baseball world. And they suggested that I went in and became a Major League Baseball scout and go out and find players like scouts found me and sign players to professional contracts and give players an opportunity to go live the dream like I did. And so I ended up becoming a professional scout for 8 years and signed 26 players to professional contracts. That was awesome. I
Mm,
loved that. I mean,
mm.
it was a hard job. You're at the baseball field almost every day of the year. It's a job it's not really for families, which was really hard on my young family, just getting married and having young kids. So that was tough being away from home, but the job itself was amazing. Um, until I wanted to be a dad.
Yeah.
Not wanted to be a dad, but I didn't want to be away from the kids
No.
anymore.
No.
My son was young and my daughter was, I think, about 3 years old, and I opted to step out of the game and go into the private world of corporate sports, and I'm glad I did. So.
With that time too, signing on players again, you must have been meeting so many families and parents and partners in that time too. So it must be like a getting to know the family and who they are and meeting with family, and they must one look up to you a little bit, but have to hope you're looking after the person they're signing on, the family member.
Yeah, that was the funnest part for me, because you're always going out to a game to watch you know who you're going out to watch because you've done your homework. You've maybe seen a kid play when they were a little bit younger as a freshman or sophomore in college, or maybe they were a junior or sophomore in high school, and he's good enough for you to come back in a couple years to see if he's really great, to be considered as a professional player. And so you have this list, about 300 players on a list for each graduation class. So when you go back out to those games, you're excited. You're excited to see the kid, how he's evolved, how he's matured, how he's gotten stronger. And so then when you see the player and you really like him and you want to write a report up on him and turn him into your front office for potential draft, to be drafted, that's when you start to dig. You start to look at, okay, I'm going to follow him on his social media channels. I'm going to find out who the parents are. I'm going to find out who the girlfriend is. I'm going to sit in the stands and act as a fan, and I'm just going to listen to what they talk about and what they say about this kid. Does the kid do drugs? Does he drink? Does he go out to parties all the time? Is he a good kid? Is he someone that would help someone else? Is he a selfish player? You watch him on the field and how he interacts with the team. Does the team even talk to him? If there's a celebration moment, does the team go up and high five the kid? You watch all these things and all these actions, and then if it really gets serious and you're going to really think about drafting this kid or putting him on the board to be selected in the Major League Baseball draft, that's when you go into the house and you get, the parents, they invite you into the house. They usually cook you a steak dinner or some sort of meal or a snack. And you spend about an hour to 2 hours with the family talking about, tell me about him as a kid. Tell me about all the trophies you have on your wall. How did you get those? What classes do you like to study? What do you want to be when you grow up and you're not playing baseball anymore? And you really get to know them as a family. And then you're also a resource. They have 100 different questions for you on what's going to happen now and how does this affect our family? And if he is selected in the Major League Baseball draft, what happens to him? Will he leave home right away? What does he have to bring with him? All these things. So because I was a player and then now I was a Major League Baseball scout and I'd grown up in the world of baseball, I loved answering those questions because it gave people education, which education meant strength, and gave them purpose and to make a good decision for their player if they got drafted. So yeah, it was a great job.
Two little questions following on from there. One, at times, I suppose there's families when they, overthink their child is better than they are, and you have to say, listen, or maybe they're just not ready. At times, that conversation must be hard, but you would have got used to it. How did you approach that conversation? You thought this kid's good, but he's not going to be ready. What would you sit down and tell the family or talk to the kid about?
Well, I always try to approach that with kindness and professionalism. So they weren't looking at me trying to tell them everything that their kid does right. So I would always lead in with, "Hey, I really like this about you. But from my professional experience, and here's why I'm a professional, what I've seen, who I'm comparing you to across the country. You're not just the best player in your little town. You're being compared to players in Australia. You're being compared to players in different parts of the United States. You're getting compared to college players that are 3 or 4 years older than you. So you have to put all of that into the equation. And then I would tell them, listen, like I've been down this road, and if you go out right now, which I'm not suggesting that you're going to there's no guarantees in this game, but if you did, you're setting yourself up for failure. So why wouldn't you go to college and get stronger and faster and develop your game better? So when the pro ball door knocks on comes knocking, you're more apt, you're more prepared to go out and have success. And so I'd always try to kind of be more on the professional side and paint the picture. Still, you had some dads or some moms that just thought their kid was the best. And there's nothing you can do about that. You
Mm.
appreciate their passion. And I maybe use the term, I disagree with you, but you're allowed to have your own opinion. And I'm only
Mm.
one person that represents one baseball club out of the 30 that are probably coming into your home. So, and a lot of times too, Alan, I might really love a kid and I think that he's going to be the best, greatest player ever. But maybe my boss, my scouting director, doesn't feel the same way. Maybe the other bosses that I have, the national scouts or my regional scouting director, maybe those directors like somebody in Ohio or Florida, or they want to draft a Dominican, or Puerto Rican player or a Canadian player because they've gone out and seen all those players. So that's hard too because you're fighting for your player, but you also have to respect your bosses and that what they've seen and what's best for the organization. And it doesn't always transcend down into the mom or the dad that's sitting in that living room thinking their kid is the best.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to paint that picture for them, you know?
Just till we get to where one day your life changed completely. Did all
Yeah.
that help, sitting in the stands and listening to people? Did that help you as well when you met people yourself and maybe a neighbour of people down the track? Did you learn to read people even better as you met them or had a meeting yourself with them as you grew your own businesses?
Yes, I've always been a good people person. I've always been able to read somebody's judgment, somebody's likes, dislikes. I would say that being in that professional environment since birth and being around presidents and iconic people and all these people that I still get starstruck over that. I'm really happy that I never lost that feeling of, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get to go meet this person and shake their hand. I still love that. I'm like a little kid in a candy store. But I learned how to do that. I learned how to go into hospitals with my dad and meet and hug young kids that were terminally ill, and I've been exposed to a lot, and I think that definitely helped me go through a lot of challenging times. But at the end of the day, I also was not raised to ever raise my hand and say I need help. We always did things through the fight, through the grit. You never ever shared your emotion. You never ever said, I need help. You never said, I'm scared. Everything was always about pushing forward and not stopping. And that was the way of the baseball athlete and probably most athletes, especially at the professional level. You don't admit when you're hurt. And so that played a big toll, a big part of reshaping my existence after some major things happened in my life that got me to where I am today.
And that's where, if you don't mind, we're going to go a little bit into now. We'll go in as far as you wish to speak and feel to talk about. what we just talked about then is seeming like life is going normal for most people, growing up, getting into business, having a family and, building your business. And then one day everything changed. Can you just tell us a little bit about that if you don't mind and go as far as you feel safe enough to go in and talk about it?
Sure. I usually try to tell a PG as much as I can, a PG-13 rated version of this. So I'm not going to get graphic,
No.
but it is heart-wrenching. In 2017, the end of September, we as my wife and I, we went to Las Vegas. We met about 16 other family and friends there. And so there's about 18 of us at a country western concert, outdoor venue, about 22,000 people. All there is a 3-day fest. So we went the first 2 nights and had a lot of fun. And then we went back on the third night and we were getting ready to go back to Texas that next day. And so it was October 1st. And in the last performer on stage started his singing. And a couple songs into that, we heard some popping sounds and then eventually gunfire. And that gunfire, at first, when I first heard the barrage of machine gun fire, I thought it was a drive-by on the other side of Las Vegas Boulevard. But there was a 7-foot retainer wall, and we were pretty close to the stage. And there was a retainer wall, so I thought, well, if it's a drive-by on the street, unless the bullets go straight up, we should be okay. And so, but still, you become vigilant. You become hyper aware in that moment. But the singer kept singing, so you thought, okay, well, they haven't shut it down. We must be okay. And then the second round started, and right before that happened, you start to hear these screams that went from happiness and laughter to terrifying. And when that second round started, you started to see people drop. And so, at that moment, I knew we were actually getting shot at now because people were getting hit around us. So I told everybody to get down. And when I got down, I was on one knee and I had my wife in front of me. And I looked up to my right towards Mandalay Bay, the hotel, and I saw a muzzle flash coming from a high room, elevated. And I knew that's where it was coming from. And we were sitting ducks.
Mm.
So I told everybody to get up and run, and we started running away from the gunfire towards the airport. There's a street called Giles Street, which is right on the east side of the venue. So we started running towards that because that's also where all the food trucks were at. And I wanted to get behind one of those metal food trucks for protection because that was the only protection we really had. And so it was about a good 30-yard run that we had to go. But luckily, we were all able to get to that food truck and then out the gate, which was about another 15, 20 feet onto Giles Street. And when we got out there, the machine gun fire had stopped through that second round. And so there was a pause. And I wanted to keep everybody moving. And so as soon as I started to run north, I took about 2 steps and I saw a man coming out carrying a woman that had been shot. And so I immediately ran to him. He was about 4 or 5 feet from me, helped him take her about another 4 or 5 feet. And we laid her down gently and she took her last breath.
Right.
And, in that moment, I realized I need to do something. I can't keep running. There's going to be more of this and more people that are hurt. And so I ran over to my wife and I told her I'm going back in and told her to keep running with the rest of the group. And I gave her a kiss. I told her I loved her. And I watched them run off and I ran back in towards the venue. And, when I got in, I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing, but I saw a woman that had been hit in the lower half of her body. And so she was a kind of an older lady, and I picked her up and I brought her out to Giles Street where there was a police car. So I set her down and I figured that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back in and I'm going to grab as many people as I can. I'm going to bring them out to this location. And, the inspiration behind all of that that darkness and that hardship, um, there were more people that started to go back in after I did. And I'm not saying I was the first, but
No.
I was definitely one of them. And there was a nurse that grabbed me right after that as I was going through those gates. And she said, I'm a trained trauma nurse, an ER trauma nurse. What can I do to help? And I said, you can put your hands on those three women right there. And there was a police officer that was injured as well. I said, and you can help them. And I ran back in. And that's pretty much what my routine was. I would run in, I saw somebody down, I saw people trying to drag people out. I would run in, I'd grab them because I was big and strong, and I would throw them over my shoulder, or I'd put them in my arms, and I would just run because I knew where to take them to get to safety. And I just did it repetitively over and over and over. I was shot at multiple times. I ended up losing three women in my arms that night, on that street. And, that was horrible. It was a uh, horrible experience, and something I've never been able to forget. I've never been able to get those memories out of my mind, the softness, the feel, um, and you know, and and them taking that last breath. But in those moments, through therapy and a lot of reflection, the way I handled those moments was with grace, with kindness, with love. Even though you could hear the crackling of the gunfire, or you could hear the screams from other people around you, in that moment when I know that when one of them for sure, when she took her last breath, I felt peace. And it was horrible, but I felt that grace, and I hope that she felt it as well. And so, I kept running. This lasted about 8 hours, Alan. So the shooting didn't last that long. We thought we were under attack.
Mm.
And, police were scattered. There were 22,000 people in this venue that all ran in multiple directions. And there were over 800 that were injured, and 500, I believe, that were shot, and 58 that passed away that night at the location. I lost two more in a hospital, I found out later on after months of people, getting in touch with all the people that helped them carry them out. And so I hear the stories of what I did from people, because I carried about 30 people out that night. And, we put people in trucks and cars that were transporting people to hospitals. And so I never stopped. I never stopped my boots from moving. When I did feel like stopping, I would see three guys or three people run right past me on my peripheral vision, and they were running back in, and it would motivate me. And I'd grab a water that someone threw down on the ground as they were running, and I'd pour it over myself to wash the blood away, and to maybe throw some in my mouth just to kind of keep me quenched. But it didn't stop. And you know, that had its hardship as well, because I did have my hands on so many people, and a lot lived, more lived, and but I did get shot at, and I know what that feels like. I know what that sound is like when that bullet flies past you. I can relate to our military and people that are in those horrible wars and things, or what first responders go into those crazy situations, and EMS, and our medical doctors and things like that. And so at the end of the night, towards it was about the sixth hour or so, we were protecting about 150 people in a casino, in a hotel that was right next to that venue, because we were told by law enforcement that there was a shooter either on the roof or making their way through the building. And so me and about eight other gentlemen, we were barricading corridors and doors. We were protecting about 150 people in the back entrance of this casino called Tropicana, which they just tore down recently. But we were in the back there protecting, and then we were also triaging people that had been shot and putting them on ambulances in the back. As the ambulances would pull up, we'd run them out, throw people in the ambulance, as many as we could get, and run back into this hallway, this tunnel. Well, at one point, I was told there was a man with a knife at the end of the tunnel, And so me and three other gentlemen took off running, and I was in the front. And here you are, you're coming up on a guy wielding a knife because he's just scared and everybody's petrified. You don't know who he is. And I've got nothing in my hands. I wish I had a baseball. I always tell that story just so I could throw it at him. But he raises his right arm, and I'm running down this hallway yelling, "Good guy, bad guy, good guy, bad guy." It was the only thing that could come out of my mouth, but I was able to startle him enough to where I was able to grab the knife, and we threw him up against the wall, and I was able to disarm him. And right after that is when our SWAT team, our paramilitary kind of police came in, and then they started getting everybody more inside the building and in a protected place. So you know, I still remember when the two SWAT officers, towards about an hour later, uh, came up to me and they put their hands on me and they said, "Sir, you can stand down." And I dropped. I dropped to my knees. I hit the ground. I didn't know what to do. I was scared. I started crying. I just seen the worst of the worst that man can do to another man, and I felt pain. I felt the sorrow, the sadness for the three women that I lost that night. All those around me that lost their lives. You could hear the screams and the cries from mothers and girlfriends and wives and husbands and boyfriends and friends that just lost their friends and or their loved ones. And so all of that hit me. And how do you deal with that? You know, I'm not trained. I'm not a trained medical professional. I was a professional baseball player. I mean, you know, I wanted to be a Marine back when I was younger because my both my grandfathers were military for in their careers. But you know, I chose sports, and I just wasn't prepared for that. Especially growing up in a house where you never, you never challenge fear. You never admit that you're hurt. My body was torn up. I ripped my left shoulder out, my hip. I had hernias. My right knee was already hurt. My right elbow. You know, all these different pains all of a sudden started hitting me at once, and people were running to get me Advil and give me water and hugging me and trying to, you know, just show me that what I did was a good thing, and showing their appreciation for me being there. But it was a hard, horrible experience, and you know, uh, um, when I got back, you know, it was about 8 hours later, I was able to reconnect with my wife, and we finally got back to the hotel where we were staying. And that was a journey in itself because all of Las Vegas was shut down. And so it was like a ghost town. And here you are, you're walking through these streets, and you know, already I keep thinking there's another shooter, he's going to get me. So when I finally got back up to that room, I felt safe in that moment. Um, but that feeling really didn't go away for quite some time. You know, but it was a horrible night. That uh,
I have to say, well, thank you in a way for taking us through that. And, you know, I'm sorry that you have to keep, you know, probably going over it so many times, but I really appreciate you saying what happened and how you felt and what was happening there. Just if you don't mind, a few questions about your wife when you said you were going back in. Did she know who you were? Could she know in your eyes that you were going to do it? Because our wives know us better than anyone on this earth.
yeah, I don't think I've spoken to anybody that has said I'm not surprised that Todd went back in. And yeah, I mean, she knew who I was. She knew I wasn't going to let you know, people get injured, and I think too, she, you know, although probably didn't like that I went back in because we thought we were under attack. Here I am. I'm leaving her. She's got to run with her brother and others to get out, relying on them to keep her safe. She probably didn't like that part, but I think she knows that the person that I am, if I would have fallen that night, if I would have gotten shot and killed, then I would have done it in an honorably way. Not to say that that's honorable or anything else, But I think going back in to help people and giving up your own life to try to do that, is something that my kids would have been proud of if that happened to me. And so I'm just glad that I was able to get out of there alive. I'm glad that I was able to be strong. And I think God put me in the right place at the right time. And I firmly believe that. I don't think I was alone that night. I feel that the angels were protecting me in ways that we just can't understand because there's no way, even I was in shape, but I wasn't in that great a shape. I was strong, but I wasn't that kind of strong to be able to lift that many people up and to run them out with boots on. I tore my boots and continue to do that for 8 hours. I think every person in there that was like me that helped, I think we had help in certain levels.
Yeah.
And it was hard, but we all made it. So
No, that's amazing. Thank
yeah,
you. The other part of that I was going to ask you, because I talked to Michael, who was in the 78th floor, the Twin Towers, with his sister dog before the buildings fell, and he got out. Now, he was blind, but I was asking you, it's coming up to October soon, we're getting close. And these days with the media and, even I'm getting you to go over it again, is it hard when, these days, you could click onto YouTube, you could go to Facebook, the clips and live actual moments are there to see that? Is that hard, or do you keep away from it? Because, if an event happens, it may not be live, but something that live and with phones these days and streaming, it can go up at that second when it's happening in school shootings or,
yeah.
situations like that. How hard is that?
Oh, it's extremely difficult. You know, when Route 91 was over in Las Vegas, my story went global. It hit the Washington Post before we even landed back in Dallas the next midday. I was on BBC. Like everybody wanted to know what I did and why I did it. And I think talking about it made me kind of distracted a little bit from the reality of how messed up I really was. And then because my mind and the way your mind protects you in those crazy traumatic experiences, I didn't quite remember everywhere my boots took me and when they took me to where. And so it was miscombobulated in terms of what I was remembering from the beginning to the middle to the end. And and so, through therapy, through peer support, and then through my own faith, I was able to, after a year and a half, really get back to becoming a stronger individual than what I was even before the first shot, because I learned how to regulate my emotions, regulate my breathing, separate from those anxiety or traumatic states or those triggers. I realized what I couldn't do in terms of go back in to a concert and be around a large body of people. I was uncomfortable with that. I knew that I needed to have my back up against the wall when I sat at church or when I sat at a restaurant. I needed to be able to see the front door, and I knew exactly where the exit points were. So I had to go through that whole process of learning how to kind of somewhat become safe again, because my innocence was all of our innocence. When you go through a traumatic a moment like that, your innocence is taken away because now you don't just trust the fact that you're going to go in and go through security and get wanded for metal detectors or whatever, and you're going to go in, you're going to be all happy and safe anymore, because that's not the reality of our world. And so now when I see these school shootings, or unfortunately what happened in Israel, or you see all these global mass shootings, or things that are catastrophes where people are losing their lives senselessly, yeah, it directly affects me. You're instantly transported into that classroom. You're
Yeah.
instantly transported there. And so you just pray for people. You go back to your therapy techniques of being able to push your trauma away a little bit. Take some time for you. I don't watch a lot of news anymore because it's so negative. I watch a lot of sports. I watch a lot of movies. I dive into my work. I started writing poetry, started writing songs. So now I've got songs on the radio, all from that trauma, stepping out of the darkness and into light. And it's been an amazing journey.
Oh, soon I would like to go into the therapy and the music and that, if you don't mind. Just one or two more questions. Like I said, I don't want to harp on this because it is, not a nice thing to talk about. But how old were your children and how hard was it? Because as you said, you were on TV everywhere. I mean that, Facebook, YouTube, everything's showing this event and, everyone's got a clip. How hard was it to talk to you? What did you tell your children? Were they asking you questions and did they know much? Because I'm not too sure how old they were.
Yeah, they were old enough to understand what happened. They weren't with us that night, which was a blessing. They were back in Texas, and but they saw it on the news. One of their friends texted them and said, "Hey, have you seen what's going on?" And so they unfortunately had to see the news part of it. And then they realized later what I had done and what I did. And that was hard. I remember, my daughter had a distrust in human beings. She said, "Daddy, how do we how do we believe in the good? When there's so much bad?" And I said, "Baby girl, there's way more good than there is bad, and you always have to believe in the good, and good will always win." And I remember my son having a conversation with him one time about, "Do you know why I went back? I didn't leave your mom, on purpose, in terms of like, but it was my calling. It was something I had to do to help people in need.
Mm,
And I would do it again. And I hope you understand that. I know that I sacrificed the potential of me not being your dad and not being here physically anymore. But I want you to know that I felt in my heart I was doing the right thing." And I remember he telling me, "Dad, I hope that I would do the same thing." Um, and me telling him, "Son, I hope that you never ever have to have that choice. I hope that by the time you grow up, maybe our world gets a little more straight, and we treat people with more kindness
mm,
than we do hate." And so, yeah, Alan, that was very hard on the whole family, obviously, and
mm.
we just tried to be there for them as much as possible.
Thank you. I didn't want to go too personal, but I just think
Yeah,
sometimes, it's very hard for children when we forget about the children. Not you, sometimes children can be forgotten about.
yeah,
We don't understand. Children actually see when parents aren't right or their parents aren't feeling, something, feeling there's something wrong. So children are very smart and exorbitant more than we
mm,
know. And I think we have to be very careful. And you did the
yeah,
right thing in talking to them and allowing them to know everything is okay and everything's safe and telling them the truth of what you went through in the best PG way you could, was the best way for them to understand as well. Um, just quick
yeah.
question about guns and that. Did you know much about guns and, how powerful it was and what it was? Have you been around guns? Did you understand guns on that day?
I mean, I knew enough. I'd gone hunting before. I had shot pistols and things like that. I knew that, they were very dangerous. I had never ever seen somebody be shot. I'd never been around that kind of environment. I had gone on, they call them ride-alongs with some of my police officer friends prior to that were cops, and would take me out to, for a night while they were being a police officer. I got a chance to witness what they went through, and we went on some scary rides, on some scary calls, but nothing to that extent to where you watch it in the movies and you
Mm,
see what the movies and how the movies portray someone after being shot, and it's similar in some movies that you watch. It's very similar, but to see it live and to know that someone is within hands reach or arm's reach that's breathing and fighting for their life in this moment. And it's not just one, it's hundreds that are around you and thousands of people on top of those people trying to save their lives or stop the bleeding and the screaming and the terror. There's nothing like that ever. And I was never ever prepared for anything like that. But yeah, I knew enough about guns, but not like machine guns. I'd never been
Mm.
around a machine gun or war type machine that this guy was using. Yeah.
And thank you again for going back in and helping all them people on that day. Just one more little bit before that till I want to move on to your therapy if you don't mind. I know you, like you said, you had played professional baseball and that. The fatigue after it, was it an amazing fatigue that you had never felt before? Because, like you said, it was 8 hours probably seemed like 5 minutes to you. You just probably couldn't, or the other way around, you didn't even know it was 8 hours. And in that time, the fatigue after it on your body and everything, how was sleep after it and in the first few days?
Well, I wish I could have slept.
Yeah.
The body was broken. It was hard, but the sleep, I had tremendous nightmares, nonstop. I couldn't sleep. Thank God when we got back to Dallas, I'd just gotten in my truck. My wife and I, we'd just gotten in the truck, and I got a phone call from a friend of my dad's that was a three-time tour combat military vet. And he said, "Hey, my name is Lee. I'm a friend of your dad's. This is who I am. This is what I went through." All within probably 15, 20 seconds, I knew he had seen battle. He had seen horrible things. He was a trusted resource from my dad that asked him to give me a call. He was somebody that I probably would respect and shake his hand if I ever met him in person. So there was instant validation that he had seen something similar to what I just saw. And he told me what I was going to experience in my first 72 hours. And he gave me kind of this guide after combat on what your body's going to go through, what your mind is going to go through. And he was there for me. And it wasn't just him, a lot of my other friends that had seen some horrible things in their lifetime, whether it was a police officer, a firefighter, a SWAT member, or more military, they were all there for me. And so the nightmares were the worst part for me because I was able to control my body and my emotions with these survival guide techniques that these people were giving me while I was awake. But when you close your eyes, the screams and the darkness and everything else hit. I did have a dream that first night when we were back home that I wasn't alone that night and that I was protected. And the next morning when I was in the shower, I felt an embrace that I've never felt before. And I'm a very faith-based individual, and it's what I believe in. It's my rock. It's my foundation.
Yeah.
Faith doesn't always have to be the angel and Jesus to you. It could be just something peaceful or something higher than you that you grab onto that gives you peace or strength. It could be a friend, it could be your truck, it could be whatever. But as long as you have faith in something that you can throw your rope around when the tornado comes and it holds you in your place. And those tornadoes just kept coming for me for a long time until I finally raised my hand and said, "Okay, I can't do this on my own anymore." But yeah, it was really tough. I mean, the fatigue never, and I think because it was multiple parts of my body, right?
Mm.
It was my hip, it was my hernias, it was my left shoulder, like I couldn't sleep, my right elbow, like I damaged my entire body that night, not just my elbow from pitching or having sore legs from working out. So it was different.
And with, I would like to, and if you can tell me a bit about your therapy, but with the injuries, how bad are they now? Are you able to get back into some sports? Do you do training still in certain ways, gym or fitness?
Yes, yeah. So I had reconstructive surgery on my left shoulder My hip is still jacked up, but they decided not to really do anything until later in life, and I can manage the pain there. It doesn't prevent me from running on a treadmill or running outside, so I'm pretty good there. I had hernia operations, so those, at times they'll kind of stop me a little bit from really pushing hard on things, and I'm more careful about it. There's other parts to my like my right arm that I was still able to throw a ball and throw batting practice to my son and play catch and throw a football. But I do it with pain. So I figure when I get a little bit older, I'll probably go in and have some of these other little minor things. But the major things that I had worked on, I had some great doctors that knew my situation and they took care of me, and the nurses and the staff and everybody was so kind and gracious, and they really treated me with respect and they took care of me, and I was very lucky and very blessed to have that. It was the mind that was the biggest. That was the hardest part was why am I stuttering? Why am I feeling this anxiety? Why can't I put my words in front of the next? Why can't I even think straight? Why am I scared? Why do I have all these nightmares all the time? Why is the back part of my head just pounding all the time? I can't stop the pain. Why does all this happen? And that was the part that I really needed. The physical part, we had all been hurt before, right? I had been hurt in baseball. I'd fallen out of trees, and you get hurt, but
Mm.
I knew the pain from surgeons and all those kind of people were going to take care of it. But the mind, how do I get back to being a dad again? How do I get back to being a worker again? I had to go back to work. And where my office was, it was in a high rise. And now I'm going up the elevator and I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting anxiety just going up this elevator. And then on Fridays, they play music. Well, on one Friday, the artist that was the last performing artist, Jason Aldean, on that night in October 1st at the country concert, his song came on. It was the exact song that he was singing when the shooting started.
Oh
And
my
I
God.
found myself running 3 blocks down the street in downtown Dallas, not even knowing what I was doing. And when I stopped, I was like, oh my God, what? I just ran out of my building. And when I got back, all the coworkers came up and they were like, are you okay? And I said, yeah, it was just the song that happened to be playing when the shooting started. And I guess I just, freaked out. And I had
Mm.
to learn that that was actually okay. That's your body defending itself, right? That's your body saying, "Okay, hold on, you're getting yourself out of here. We're gonna get those legs moving, and we're gonna carry that mind out of this location to keep you safe." And yeah, it took quite a while, but I know you had a question about therapy and stuff, but I didn't want to go too far without.
No, no,
Um,
no, that's great. And even, sorry, just even your story about that
yeah,
music coming on, I wasn't even there, and I felt myself get, a little bit prickly, and the hair and everything go up. It just, and I wasn't even there. Just the thought
yeah,
of that is amazing. So thank you. But your therapy journey, if you could go through it, because as you said, it's so
yeah.
important. Must have from the start to the end must have been amazing, that journey. If you can allow us to know that journey.
Yeah, well, like I mentioned, I was broken, I was hurt, not just physically, but mentally. I couldn't sleep. And I woke up one night, I was in the middle of the night, and I went to go to the restroom and I'm washing my hands and I look at myself and I'm putting water on my face and I'm just white as a ghost. Didn't even recognize myself. And I realized at that moment, I need help. I need to go to therapy. Now, I had been having friends tell me, you need to go see a therapist. I had a firefighter friend of mine out of Northern California that told me about EMDR therapy. And so I thought, okay, that's who I need to go to. A couple other people told me the same thing. Go see somebody that specializes in EMDR. They work with combat veterans, first responders, people with major trauma. It's a eye movement deal. You can do the audio, or you hold these little river rocks that are connected to a electronic stimulus that almost kind of vibrate back and forth like a heartbeat. And the therapist has control over the volume, the vibration intensity. So what I went through, I finally, after 3 tries, because the first couple therapists that I went to, I couldn't talk more than 8 seconds into that night without feeling like I'm going to damage them. And that was hard for me because everything that my friends were telling me was that I need to find a therapist that I can talk to, that I can unload all this crazy stuff that I had seen, and they're going to help me process all of that. And then they're also going to help me categorize my thoughts and put everything more into a chronological timeline for me so I can remember where my boots took me that night and process that and cry about it. And they kept telling me that's what you need. And so finally I found this woman. I think I don't know if she smokes or not, but I think she probably smoked about 30 cigarettes a day. And she was rough and gruff, and she was exactly what I needed. She told me she had worked with combat veterans. That was her specialty, was EMDR therapy. And I went into her room, into the office. And I remember sitting on that couch, and she puts the river rock paddles in my hands, and she starts to turn it on, and I can feel it going right, left, and you can feel the vibrations. And she said, "Now what's going to happen?" She said, "I'm going to control the intensity of the vibration." And so she turned it up a little bit, and I could feel the vibration going faster and faster. And so she turned them back down a little bit, and she said, "When I'm ready, I'm going to ask you a question to start the process." And so she would ask me a question about, okay, where were you when you first heard the gunfire? When that first shot, explain where you were at. And so I was telling her I was dancing with my niece, and then the song ended, and she goes, "Okay, hold on." She goes, "Let's go back. Let's take it back 30 seconds. Do you remember what the weather was like? Do you remember the sounds? Do you remember looking around? Do you remember anything in particular that you saw in that moment when you and your niece separated? What were you doing?" And I said, "I remember." And so that whole process, she had turned up the volume, which then she always said would take the drawbridge in the back side of your brain where your brain protects you. When you have a traumatic experience, your brain will take all those really bad memories, those bad things that you just saw, and it'll protect you. And that's why you get those bad headaches, because it's your brain working overtime to try to protect you from remembering all of the details. And so the way EMDR works is it allows that drawbridge basically in the backside of your brain to lower just a little bit. And through her talkative therapy and asking guiding questions and the intensity of the vibration, it allows you to unlock enough for a minute of time or 2 minutes of time to be able to come out. And then she closes that drawbridge. And so we put the paddles down, and we started talking about that moment that I remembered in those 1 to 2 minutes. And what was amazing, Alan, is as I remembered those moments, I was able to uh, chronologically put them into a black box and put them on an imaginary shelf behind me. And that was minute one. And we went through all of those minutes and those 8 hours, not only just through the talkative therapy and EMDR, but we also, thank God, on social media and Facebook, the venue put together a Find Your Hero page. And it was only private, it was only for attendees that got invited. And it was for people to be able to try to find who went back in to help others and help them. And I had a lot of people, either friends saying, "Hey, you were in this area. Do you remember this girl? Does this person look familiar? Read this story." And I would read it a little bit, but more importantly, they would send pictures of me around. And then people were contacting me saying, hey, do you remember picking up a girl and throwing her over your shoulder and running out? And she had blonde hair, and you put her in the back of a pickup truck, and the pickup truck drove away. Do you remember that? And I'm like, I don't know. There were several of that, like these memories that I'm having, and they would explain the girl's injury, and it sounded horrific. It sounded horrible, and not even like anybody could ever survive that. And I remember getting these text messages like 2, 3 weeks later saying, but she lived. You have to know that you saved her life. And I'm like, oh my God. And I'm in a mall and I'm on my knees and I'm crying because of all the emotions. I took all of those memories that people gave me and I brought them into therapy for me. And my therapist allowed me to process those memories and we put them into timelines. And that was amazing to me. So I think I went through that process for about a year and a half,
Mm.
and it was the best thing I ever did because after each one of those hour and 15-minute long sessions, I would be exhausted. And
Yeah.
I'd go back into my truck and I would cry because I'm not a big crier publicly. You'll see me tear up, but man, like when I got in my safe place, I could really process that. And that to me allowed me to become strong again because it wasn't just kicking me in the back of the skull anymore. It was out in front of me now. I could see it. I remember what I did. I could process, I could cry, I could feel bad about it because it's there. I could touch it, I could feel it. And that gave me ownership of that moment. And as hard as what it was. Yeah.
You said one of the things what your good friend Bernie, who told me about you and you accepted to come on, is he said he went to so many therapists and he couldn't believe, he just said, if I talk to this person, they're not going to ever do this again. And he found the right person. It is finding the right person and someone that you can connect to and someone you can feel like can help you, isn't it?
Yes, and it doesn't matter what you're going to therapy for. You don't have to go just because you're in a horrific accident or shooting or anything. You could just be having marital issues. You could be having just some anxiety in life because you have too much work on your plate. You could have lost your dog or whatever. Like finding the right therapist that that is relatable to you. They have an expertise in a related traumatic event that you need to talk about and build that relationship with. So therapy to me was not transactional. It wasn't just I was going to go pay somebody X amount of dollars for the time and they were just going to sit in a chair and listen and write stuff down in a notebook. I needed interaction. I needed them to really have a relationship with me across that room, and I need to be able to feel safe about that
Mm.
because I knew when I closed those doors, when I said goodbye and she closed the door, that wasn't leaving that room, right? And it was now up to me to process what I had just talked about. And she gave me, that's the other part about finding a good therapist. At the end, they're going to guide you to become your hero again. They're going to be able to provide the tools that you need to combat things with. And I'm a faith-based man. And so I needed to find a therapist that was also faith-based, that made me feel comfortable and it gave me peace. And that's where I really started writing. I started getting into poetry and writing because I was the beast. I was a strong beast that didn't stop, and I wasn't going to stop for my family. I was fighting for my family, right? I wasn't going to stop at all. And she said, Todd, you are a beast, but we need to get some peace in your life. And so she started having me kind of do some practices at home when I stare out the window when I've got too much going on and I can feel the stuttering of my speech starting to happen in like a work call. So I knew I needed to breathe. I knew I needed to relax. I needed to like bring my blood pressure down. And I had a window at our old place, at our old house, and I'd look out the window and I'd just see the trees, or sometimes I'd see a little white butterfly that would happen to come by every once in a while. And I just think about how beautiful that was. And I started really embracing the beauty of life. And you hear about it all the time from like survivors, but it really does happen. And you kind of reset yourself. And the next thing I knew, she had me starting to write down these emotions. And that's where the poetry came in on just how I felt as a individual, how I was hurt, how I was damaged, and how I can get back up again. And so I started building that poetry up, which then turned into songs and lyrics and music. And it was amazing, absolutely amazing on how that lifted me up.
And I want to go into a bit of the poetry and the music, but just two questions about the therapy. Because you grew up in that baseball world when you were playing professional and that, it's the big, strong man world and areas, and growing up as a man, kind of the men didn't think of it. Had you ever been in therapy or been around therapy before then?
Yeah, we went to marital therapy one time, but not really anything else. No, other than talking to players and your kind of your guys, your pals, nothing professional like that before because you just didn't do it. You
No.
weren't raised that way, like you just said. Yeah.
No, and a bit of personal, like you said, had been to marriage therapy before. How was, if you don't mind, the relationship with your wife through that time? It can be hard because you going through your feelings, and she'll have feelings about trying to be strong for you. But how was that time through your marriage, and that was it very hard?
Well, our marriage was hard before, and that kind of that unfortunately hindered our growth together as well because it was damaged before. In fact, going to Las Vegas, we were questioning whether or not we were going to be married much longer, and so it was damaged before. But going through that process, you have to remember she went through that too. She had to run for her life. She felt the bullets flying around us. There's nothing like that, regardless of anything. All 22,000 people and staff and all the vendors and the security and law enforcement and all the people that weren't even at the concert that witnessed someone that had been shot running through the casino doors while you're playing, blackjack or while you're gambling, and that instant feeling of, oh my God, am I okay? There's something going on. The bomb, like there's all these different things that were happening around the city. All those people were affected in that instant moment when you realize you're not in this innocent, safe place, right?
Mm.
And that takes a huge chunk out of you. And so with her, thank God I got her out very quickly. She didn't have to see anything uh, tragic and loss of life, other than on the news and things, but that still affected her dramatically. So there was a lot of that going on. I think that, you know, some people, uh, they push therapy away and it's just always away, and they truly feel that they're going to be okay, and you can see over time how that's impacted their decision making, their anger management, their breathing, and then you can see where people that have gone to therapy or have done some form of self empowerment, self healing, where they're just a little bit more at peace. And I think that's where it really affected us.
Thanks for that. And I want to move on to your music and that, but thanks for being that personal about your relationship. But one thing I'll just say about all of that is, like I was talking to the people from 9/11, and even Bernie, the aftermath of people who passed away after it, who got cancer and different things from the buildings and all the stuff what came from the buildings. It's like this event still is. It just didn't change people's lives on these days. It changed families' life, even for people who didn't pass away like yourself, where couples could have broke up, where someone could have turned to drug or alcohol. So it can affect a generation ongoing if a parent breaks up or ends up doing something tragic to themselves after it too. So this event doesn't just stop on that day, and it carries on.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, you have a lot of people that have survivor's guilt, a lot of people that did the right thing when those first sounds of gunfire happened. They ran and they ran as far away as they possibly could, and they got themselves and some, if they were with their significant others, they got them to safety. They did the right thing. You ran, you found safety, you stayed there until it was all over. You did the right thing. But there were a lot of people in that aftermath that would hear the stories of people like myself of doing these things and helping others, that they just instantly started that feeling that survivor's guilt and went to drugs and drinking. And we've lost some people to that, just because of that hardship. But it, like, and your guess, trauma doesn't go away.
No.
You don't just, I'm not going to wake up tomorrow, as much as I pray for it. I'm not going to wake up tomorrow and it's just going to be gone out of my mind. Or there's certain, like, now new techniques that promise and guarantee that you're going to just instantly forget all these things. No, it doesn't happen. But what you do learn is you learn how to walk with it.
Mm.
You learn how to figure it out. You learn how to put it at your side in life, and you learn how to adjust your life, knowing that you've got this trauma that follows you, right? And you don't let it overpower you. You
Mm.
become a stronger beast that walks with peace. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm sorry. Hopefully, I haven't kept you too long, and I want to go into your music and poetry. So hopefully, the questions haven't been too personal. But one thing I'm thinking there, I know you said you had family who have been military, and I know you have spoke to a lot of military people now and first responders. Even the first responders that day, some of them would have had to go back to work the next day or straight after it. It's even that trauma is hard where they just saw that and then the next call could be, someone playing up or, the most silliest thing after just handling a situation like that.
Yeah. Law enforcement, they're probably impacted the most, because a lot of those police officers go out on one person in a vehicle, and they have to go from call to call. And how do you regulate those emotions? That's what I speak to a lot of first responders and military organizations about, is how to regulate your temper, how to regulate your thoughts, how to separate and then be able to process after everything is done. Firefighters, I don't know if Bernie brought that up, but
Yeah.
a lot of times after major calls, they're able to go back to the firehouse, and usually there's some routine that the five firefighters that went out as a team, maybe they go get a piece of cake, maybe they get something from the grocery store or whatever, and they bring it back to the table, and they all talk about it while they're having some snack or a piece of cake or something. It's not a celebratory thing.
No.
It's a moment of being able to make sure that the team is okay.
Yeah.
And it's not always food related. But
No.
yeah, to your point, I think it goes all the way back to, even if they're law enforcement, realizing that, hey, if this person's being mean or upset to me while they're writing me a ticket, there's probably something that happened right before that.
Yeah.
And they're not just being mean to me. They didn't just pick me out. Like, why is it that we can't, as people, turn around and say, sir or ma'am, are you okay? Did
Yeah.
something just happen? How can I help you? What
Yeah.
can I do for you? I'm the
Yeah.
one that sped. I'm the one that broke the law, right? I'm the one that ran the red light by accident. I'm the one that didn't stop at the stop sign, whatever that is. But how can we be more gracious? How can we be more peaceful in those moments? Yeah.
And just before we move on to the music bit, but I think the word is we have to be responsible for our own doing.
Yeah.
We have to
Yeah.
take responsorship and understand we're responsible for driving, doing this responsible and take the blame and don't throw the blame away. And that's the best way to do it. But we all find that hard to do. Can we move on to your music and your poetry? And you always probably had some love in music, but how you got, as you said, through therapy. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah. Yes. I'd be more than happy to talk about my music and poetry. than the other stuff. The like I mentioned, poetry really started with me writing down some funny words and trying to describe the really nice feelings that I was having, the peace. And it started with studying what poetry was all about. I don't really do things halfway. So I
Mm,
went into the art of poetry, the syllable counts, the word counts, reading different poems. I wanted to be able to do it right and really articulate my thoughts in a professional way. And so I really got into it. And I remember, at church, we have this police officer that patrols sometimes, and he's a older gentleman, white beard, and he's always looking like, he's always hugging people that the staff members, everybody's just so excited to see him. But there's this presence about him that gave me comfort, knowing that there's an officer inside the church. I'm safe, at least, generally,
mm,
but there was something about his piece. So I wrote a poem about him, and it wasn't about like him as a man or an individual. It was about how he made me feel, right? And how it brought me peace and strength. And I gave that to him, and he started crying. He said, "Nobody's ever given me anything like this before." And I said, "Well, I just wanted to let you know how it makes me feel as someone that's broken and has been through some hard things. Your presence on how you are as a person impacted me as a person to just know that I had peace in my heart in that moment." And so that really, I started getting more of those that feedback. And then I wrote a song about the night of Vegas, and it's called "Just Because He Had to," and it tells the story of where my boots took me through that night in a song. And I shared that with a couple people, and they thought it was absolutely amazing, but very, very personal, and something I probably will never ever launch to the public. But through hearing how the poetry turned into music and sound, I grew up listening to country music. I love Christian music. I love rock. I love reggae. I love rap. I love it all. So I started really studying music and started studying the art of songwriting and different sounds and what instruments sound like. And if you're watching a country band on TV or on the stage, what music and instruments are they? What does a steel guitar sound like, and how does that work? And so I started writing a lot of songs, and next thing I know, I've got over 97 songs written, and I started producing the music, and I ended up producing over 40 songs and copywriting them. And then I launched an EP. I'm on Spotify, I'm on Apple Music, and I've got 10 songs on there right now. And just recently, over the last 3 weeks, I was asked to stop releasing my music because I was doing it
mm.
one song a week,
Okay.
because I've got agents now that are interested in licensing my music and having big artists sing them. So,
That's amazing.
oh, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
just a quick thing, Jacob, who you met, he's a music teacher, so he'll be really interested in hearing this. He loves his music, of course. So,
yeah.
music means a lot to him. Just about the music. As a kid, did you play instruments? Where did you play anything as a kid?
I played the violin for just a brief, probably just for school. So no, not really. I played
No.
the drums a little bit just for fun. I really got into the guitar, and that's what I really enjoyed. But I would not call myself a musician by any stretch of the imagination. A
Mm,
lot of my songs, again, came from the poetry influence, but I started writing just the lyrics now. I don't really write poetry anymore. Over the last probably 5 years, I've just been writing songs, and I use different tools online, GarageBand and other platforms to be able to articulate the sound. I work with other artists, so they'll send me a guitar riff, and I'll put a song together in my mind overnight. It just keeps me up, but it's part of my therapy as well. It's ongoing. And next thing I know, I'm writing a song the next morning and we're putting it to music and then we produce it. And it's just such an amazing feeling and amazing art to be able to do that. And like I said, I've got two huge agents right now that have incredible artists that they're very interested in having conversations with me over the next couple of weeks
And
on
wasn't
this.
there
So
some even talk about even doing a movie as well?
yes, so a movie script has been written on my life story,
Yep.
and they're starting to pitch the movie.
Yeah.
But I can't talk
No,
about
of
what
course
it
not.
is.
No,
But
no, no, that's
obviously,
fine.
it's my
But
life
it is.
story.
Yeah.
But I think, when I agreed to allow this writer to start writing my story, I said the only way that I'm going to allow this is at the end of the movie. If I'm sitting outside the movie theater and the movie ends, the only way I'm going to allow this is if we put a movie together where people are walking out and they're holding the door for each other, they're kind to each other, and you can physically see that that movie uplifted their spiritual, their soul, their persons, that they're just better people when they walk out of that theater. Um, and I think that the movie script that was written is going to do just that. I think it's gonna pull you down. It's gonna slam you in your seat. It's gonna get you scared. It's gonna pull some emotions out that you're gonna have to like get down because you're probably gonna cry. But at the end, I think it's really got a chance to really uplift you, and it sheds a lot of light on EMDR therapy.
Yeah.
It sheds a lot of light on strong people giving in to say, hey, I need help, and realizing that it's strong to do that and it's more weak to just hold it in. Because, like you're an athlete, if I'm hurt and I can't throw a baseball, I go right to the training room and the trainer gets me on ice. They do massage techniques or whatever to get me back out to go throw again. So,
Mm.
why is it so hard for us to admit that our minds are hurt, our souls are hurt, our body are we're mentally hurt? You need help. And there's
Mm.
some incredible therapists, incredible people out there that are willing to help you. You just got to find that right one so you can get back out on the field and throw strikes again, you know?
Thank you for that. And I suppose some of your music, if it all happens, can be in the movie as well. And what you just said about uplifting someone and making people feel like it, I suppose that's the motion you put in your music as well.
Yes, every song that I've written, every single song has some are dark, but transform into light. Some are fun that they take a hard time in my life. They're all very personal. Um, I've written a couple songs that like one I wrote called Fighters Fight. It's the mentality of you having self-doubt and always kind of playing a pity party on yourself. And somebody, a friend, comes to you and says, hold on, you're letting all this other stuff affect who you are and who you want to be as a man, as a person. You need to fight. You need to get that fighter's fight in you and get that grit and let's go. And
Mm.
so a lot of those songs that I've written, I wrote a song called One Deep Breath that's on Spotify and everywhere else. It went on the radio. It's all about how we pile on all these things on our lives, and sometimes we just don't take that one deep breath, because when we take that deep breath, everything goes away. Even if it's
Yeah.
for that second, it gives us peace in that moment to slow down.
Well, it's
And
amazing. It's
yeah,
amazing. Sorry about, and there's amazing you said that. Like I said, I don't overly talk about my disability not being able to see, but even that, like you said, that deep breath, sometimes it can be frustrating. Something drops and you got to find it if there's no one around. And, sometimes you think, I'm going to give up. I'm not going to try to find it on the floor, but that one deep breath, like, okay, now I can do it. I'll just go again. I'll find it. And then suddenly it just pops out of nowhere. And that one deep breath can do that in so many ways.
yeah, you got to listen to the song now. I
Yep.
think you're really going to resonate with it. Yeah.
No, I will. And again, like I said, I'm new at this and only coming up to, now a year doing this. And I know you have done a lot of talks and, conferences and that before. So I hope you have felt, what I've done today is respectful and you enjoyed the questions and it's been respectful how I have set it up. So I hope you have enjoyed it. I really respect you going through that event, and I know you talk about it a lot. And I'm thankful that you were able to talk about that today here.
I appreciate it. And yes, you did an amazing job, and the questions were well thought of. You know, I speak about the event because there's so many teaching moments through the trauma side of that, right? The learning how to stand back up again. And I'll end it with this. I was on a podcast shortly after I did my TED talk, and it was a first responder podcast. And the gentleman said, "Hey, I want you to talk about 10 minutes of what happened in Las Vegas. And then we want to spend about 50 minutes talking about your therapy and different techniques that you use today to make you who you are as this strong individual that walks with peace now." And that was enlightening to me. And so
Yeah,
now when I go speak, I speak on leadership. I speak on, yes, there's the story of Vegas. Sometimes it only lasts 5 minutes. I play a video that shows some of the actual audio and the visuals. So it instantly allows me then to get up on stage and really talk about what hits us all,
yeah,
the hardships of life. And
yeah,
how do you deal with those things? And so, like yourself, um, you know, I don't ever want to be labeled as I have a disability or that I'm defined by my tragedy. I'm
no.
defined by who I am today and how I walk forward in my life with peace and strength and love and helping others where I can and when I can. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Two last questions I do ask at the end, and how Bernie told me about you. If you have enjoyed it and you said you felt it respectful, out of friends or any social friends or anything who could you refer that you think would enjoy this kind of interview podcast, how it's gone today, that you would say, hey, Alan, I think this person would suit you, or you could say, hey, I think it would be great for you to go on Alan's podcast.
I mean, are you looking for somebody with like a traumatic story? Or are you looking
Anything. I
for,
don't. And anyone in the world. I have built this podcast to be a genre of stories. I don't care if they're an amazing mother, amazing father. They had gone through traumatic things. Anyone
yeah.
you anyone.
Yeah, I mean, I've had so many different guests. You could literally just go on my pod. I've got a lot from Jason Corthell, that's a first responder, a firefighter down in South Texas that went through a lot. Internally, went through. He just released a book to a gentleman called Cody Loveland. That's one of my mentors. He's a well-known advocate in the HR space, business, really fun guy, but very great father, very balanced in his life. He'd be a really good guest from a business perspective, leadership. Um, yeah, there's some. My mind's going crazy right
No,
now,
that's
and
okay. Last.
I'll just email you.
No,
I'll
no,
email
that's
you some
last one. Like we
contacts.
all look for someone. I mean, you had some last one. I promise you. You always look for someone amazing. You had so many amazing people, but who's someone you call famous or someone amazing that can be an actor, singer that you think, oh, I would love to be able to have them on your podcast or my podcast and hear them, because every time you hear them talk, you just think they're an amazing person or someone that you really would want to meet.
Well, I think there's like Dave Sanderson. He was on my podcast. He was on the Miracle on the Hudson, the plane that went down.
Oh, okay.
Um, he was one of the last survivors to get out of that plane and has an incredible speaker. Um, General John, retired Brigadier General John Tykert. with the Air Force. He's still a huge voice within like the news. They bring on the military experts and stuff, but he's an incredible speaker. Very one of the smartest people I've ever spoken to. He's incredible, incredible father, incredible man of peace, believe it or not, being a general, but a great leader. Yeah, there's a bunch.
No,
I've had
that's
some really great guests on my podcast.
no.
Some females that have great stories. So yeah.
No, that's great. Todd, again, I'm pleased that you found it respectful. Again, thanks for your time and coming on today. I know you're very busy yourself, but you said you might come down to Australia. Who knows? We might get time to meet up and meet each other in person, and I really look forward to that. I know Jacob's enjoyed the story today, and just thanks for coming on. Hey.
Well, thank you both. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Jacob, for setting this up. I appreciate your time. And
No.
yeah, let me know when this launches and what you guys are going to do with it.
Yep. No. Well. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks,
That's
Todd.
really good. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, you're welcome.
And
Yeah.
like I said, I hope you enjoyed it. I'm very new at this, but you're a great speaker, and thanks for your story and just being able to let me know your personal story today. Okay.
You got it. Yes, sir. Enjoy the music. Let me know what you guys think.
We'll check it out. As I said,
I was looking it up while you're talking, so I'm going to have a listen to it today at some point.
Awesome.
Jacob's got his own music there too. We might even send you a link to that for you to have a look at it.
Yeah, do it.
Okay.
There you go.
Thanks, mate. You have a great week, and thanks,
you
mate.
so much.
See you, buddy.
You guys enjoy your day.
You too.
All right, see you, fellas. Bye.
See you later.
Alan Lewis Raw Conversation, where every voice has a story.